The night before I was finally going to become a father, my wife turned to me in the kitchen and whispered, "I can't do this." I thought she meant the stress, the anticipation, the emotions we'd both been carrying for weeks. So I smiled gently and told her it was okay to be nervous, that tomorrow would change our lives forever. But Claire didn't smile back. She just stared down at her cup of tea like it might give her the words she didn't want to say out loud. "I canceled the adoption," she said. I blinked, certain I had misheard. "What?" "I called the agency this afternoon," she went on, her voice hollow. "Told them we weren't moving forward, that I wasn't ready. I'm sorry." The world didn't shatter with a loud crash. It just slowed. We had spent 5 years trying to become parents. Fertility treatments that drained us, miscarriages that broke us, hope that kept rebuilding itself on top of wreckage. When we finally got approved to adopt a 4-year-old boy named Milo from foster care, it felt like we were breathing after holding our breath for years. We'd spent months preparing his room. I installed a nightlight shaped like a rocket ship. Claire picked out dinosaur bedding. We argued over stuffed animals and laughed through our tears when we found the perfect blue overalls that were just slightly too big. I took family leave from my job as a paramedic to be fully present when Milo came home. And now, she was telling me he wouldn't. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Claire's eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. "I thought I could do it," she said. "I wanted to, but it's not the same as having your own child. I'm not ready to give myself to someone else's baby." I didn't know what to say to that. I just didn't. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling in the nursery we had built. The walls were still painted a soft gray. The rocking chair still creaked slightly when I shifted my weight. The mobile still turned slowly above the crib, casting quiet shadows across a room meant to hold joy. But now it only held silence. Claire didn't come to bed. I heard her crying in the guest room the same way she had during our last failed IVF round. In the morning, she made coffee like nothing had happened, wore her favorite green coat, packed a suitcase, and said she had to leave for a last-minute conference out of town, Denver. She kissed me on the cheek. I didn't move. "I just need space," she whispered. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. She walked out the door, and I stood there, clutching the mug she'd left on the counter. It was still warm. 3 hours later, I got a call from the adoption agency. A soft-voiced woman asked if we were open to rescheduling the introduction with Milo for next week instead. I told her Claire had canceled everything. There was a pause. "That's strange," she said. "I tried calling her this morning, on her other number, but it just rang out." "Her other number?" I repeated. The woman sounded confused. "The Indianapolis number. It's the one she gave us for emergencies." My heart stopped. Claire didn't have a number in Indianapolis, or at least, I didn't think she did. I ended the call and stared at my phone like it had just spoken a different language. Claire had given the agency an Indianapolis number? That made no sense. She'd never mentioned anything about Indianapolis. Her work conferences were usually in Denver, Seattle, or the occasional New York trip. I'd helped her pack for them. I'd driven her to the airport. But Indianapolis? I opened our phone bill online. Claire and I shared an account, so I could see every call, every text. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy, I just wanted to make sense of what was happening. The moment the page loaded, my chest tightened. There were dozens of calls to the same Indianapolis number. Late at night, midday, weekends, all hours, going back nearly 2 years. At first, I thought, maybe it was a client. She worked in marketing. Maybe it was some freelance project. But then I noticed something else. Every time Claire had taken a business trip, she had gone silent for 48 to 72 hours, no calls to me. Just short texts saying she was busy, tired, in meetings. And during those same windows, there were incoming and outgoing calls to that same Indianapolis number, sometimes multiple times a day. I sat back, trying to keep my thoughts from running too far ahead. But the dots weren't just connecting, they were screaming. I did a reverse lookup. The number wasn't listed under any business. It was a personal mobile registered to someone named Marcus S. The area code matched the address of a small suburb outside Indianapolis. I called the number. It rang 3 times before going to voicemail. A man's voice, casual and warm. "Hey, it's Marcus. You know what to do." I didn't leave a message. I just sat there, trying to figure out what this meant. Claire wasn't just canceling an adoption. She was pulling away from everything we'd built. The next day, I called in sick and drove to Indianapolis. I told myself it was just to find answers, to clear my head. But in truth, I already knew I wouldn't come back the same. I drove 6 hours straight, hands tight on the wheel, replaying every moment from the past 3 Yearshire late arrivals, the secretive smiles, the distance I kept chalking up to stress. I arrived in the neighborhood late afternoon. It was quiet, suburban, tree-lined. I parked a few houses down and waited. An hour passed. Then she appeared. Claire, my wife, stepping out of a cozy brick house with a little girl no older than 2 in her arms. The child looked just like her. Claire was smiling, laughing. She kissed the girl's forehead and handed her off to a man who emerged from the doorway, a tall, athletic guy in jeans and a hoodie. He kissed Claire. On the mouth. Not a peck. A kiss full of routine, familiarity, comfort. They stood in the driveway chatting for a minute before he scooped up the girl and disappeared back inside. Claire lingered, checking her phone, then walked to her car. I slumped down in my seat, heart pounding. She got into her vehicle and drove away, headed back to Chicago, back to me. Back to the man she thought was still blind. My ears rang with silence. My hands were cold. She didn't cancel the adoption because she wasn't ready for motherhood. She canceled it because she already was a mother. And I wasn't part of that story. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the steady hum of the tires and the slow unraveling of every lie Claire had ever told me. By the time I pulled into our driveway, it was almost midnight. The house was dark. Claire wouldn't be back until morning. Her conference was scheduled to end around noon, she'd said. I didn't go inside right away. I just sat in the car, staring at the front door, remembering how many times I'd watched her walk through it, acting like she was coming home. But now I knew better. Inside, everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I walked past the nursery without stopping. I couldn't even look at it. Instead, I went to Claire's home office. The door creaked open quietly. Her laptop sat on the desk, closed, but not password protected. She had always trusted me. I opened it. At first, there was nothing unusual. Emails from coworkers, calendar appointments, draft presentations. But tucked into a folder labeled Q4 Materials was a series of documents that had nothing to do with marketing strategies. Flight itineraries, hotel reservations, payment confirmations, most of them for Indianapolis. I found one email that froze my blood. Subject line: ultrasound results, baby 2. Sender: marcusone982@gmail.com. Message preview: looks healthy. 2 hearts beating strong this time. I clicked it open. There it was. An ultrasound image dated just 2 weeks ago. Claire was pregnant. Again. I sat back in her chair, the breath leaving my lungs. While I had been assembling a crib and folding baby clothes for a child we were about to adopt, Claire had been carrying someone else's child. And not just someone Marcus. The man she had another family with. She hadn't just lied. She'd lived a double life. I scrolled through more emails. Some were mundane Target receipts, pediatrician notes, but others were devastating. A family photo shoot confirmation, a daycare application, a payment plan for maternity care, all using a slightly altered version of her name, Claire J. Thompson, instead of Claire R. Thompson. That's why the adoption agency couldn't reach her other number. That's why the social worker was confused. Claire had built a second identity, a second household, a second version of herself. And I was the accessory she left in the drawer between visits. The rage didn't come right away. What came first was grief. The kind that doesn't make a sound. I closed the laptop, stood, and stared out the window for a long time. The street was quiet. The wind moved through the trees like a whisper. She had played me like a background character in her story. But what she didn't know, what she never counted on, was that I had been watching, listening, learning. I was a paramedic. I noticed patterns. I read between the silences. And I wasn't going to scream or beg or fall apart. I was going to make her tell the truth with evidence she couldn't explain away. Not to me. To the people she cared about keeping in the dark. And I already knew exactly how. Claire got home just after noon, right on schedule. She came through the door with her usual tight-lipped smile and a small coffee from the airport. The scent of artificial caramel filled the hallway as she leaned in to kiss my cheek. "You're home early," she said, setting her suitcase down. I shrugged. Shift got canceled. Budget cuts. She nodded, uninterested. I'm exhausted. That conference was brutal. I didn't say anything, just watched her walk past the nursery without even glancing in. She'd once spent an entire afternoon arranging the stuffed animals by size. Now she walked past the room like it didn't exist. Over dinner, I asked simple questions. Not because I wanted the answers, because I wanted to watch her lie. How was the hotel? Decent. Nothing special. How were the speakers? She paused for half a second. Mostly the same industry fluff. You know how these things go. Every word was smooth, practiced. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. That night, I lay next to her in bed, listening to her breathing. I thought about the child in Indianapolis, about the baby inside her now, about the man who had unknowingly built a life on the other half of her lie. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, Melinda Cross, the same one I'd driven a colleague to last year after his wife emptied their joint account and disappeared. She specialized in complicated dissolutions infidelity, financial deception, hidden assets. I need to do this right, I told her. No drama, just the truth and consequences. Melinda scheduled a consultation for the next day. She told me to bring everything, emails, photos, phone records, copies of transactions, anything that could prove misconduct. That night, while Claire slept, I went to work. I downloaded all the emails. I printed out bank transfers to her secret checking account. I saved the ultrasound image. I clipped the message from Marcus. But the thing that sealed it, the thing that made my stomach knot, was the journal. Claire had left it on her desk. Not locked, not hidden, just sitting there like it didn't matter. Inside, I found months of entries. Reflections about balancing both lives. Her fears of getting caught. Her doubts about whether Marcus would ever leave his own situation if she didn't get pregnant again. And one entry dated just days before she canceled the adoption. I can't bring another child into this. Not with Alex watching so closely. He'll notice. Milo will be too much. I have to stop it before it complicates everything. I didn't even realize I was crying until I saw a tear hit the page. Not because I wanted her back, not anymore, but because I believed her. I believed every smile, every tear, every whispered promise that we were in this together. She threw it all away for a life that didn't include me. But I still had a part to play, one she wouldn't see coming. The next day, I walked into Melinda's office with a folder thick enough to sink her career. Melinda flipped through the contents, eyebrows raised. She has no idea, does she? No. Good. Let's keep it that way. For now. I nodded, jaw clenched. Let me ask, she said, tapping a page from Claire's journal. What outcome are you looking for, Alex? Do you want to destroy her or just walk away clean? I looked her in the eye. I want her exposed. Not just to the court. I want everyone to know who she really is. Both families. Both lives. Both versions of the woman who left a child waiting in a room full of dinosaurs. Melinda smiled. Then let's begin. Melinda didn't waste time. Within 24 hours, she had filed a petition for divorce citing marital misconduct and emotional cruelty. But the legal action was just the beginning. The real plan, the one that mattered, was about the narrative. We weren't just going to win. We were going to reveal. I spent the week following Claire's routine without interfering. Let her play her roles. Let her believe I was still confused, still broken, still clinging to the scraps of what we'd once had. Meanwhile, Melinda helped me subpoena flight records, financial statements, and cell phone tower logs. We pulled her GPS pings from the cell carrier, charted every movement, every conference that happened to align perfectly with Marcus's neighborhood. But the real turning point came when I tracked down Marcus himself. He had no idea Claire was married. None. When I called and introduced myself, there was a long pause. Then, "Claire Thompson?" I nodded even though he couldn't see me. She told me her last name was Jennings. I met him at a diner halfway between our cities. He brought his daughter. She had Claire's eyes. "She told me she got divorced 5 years ago," Marcus said, his voice brittle. "That her ex was abusive, and that's why she didn't want to involve him in anything." I just stared at him. The level of her deception was beyond anything I could have prepared him for. I showed him the adoption paperwork. I showed him the nursery. I showed him the ultrasound printout she'd sent both of us. Marcus buried his face in his hands. She said she was going to tell me once the baby was born, that we could finally move in together. I didn't speak. I just let the truth settle around him like dust on a casket. "She's pregnant with my child," he said quietly. "And she's still married to you?" I nodded once. "Okay," he said. "What do you need from me?" "Just the truth," I replied. And that's what he gave me: mails, texts, photos, voice messages. Everything. The next step was delicate. Claire's birthday was coming up, and I told her I'd arranged a special surprise dinner with someone she used to know from our adoption group. "I wanted to reconnect," I said. "Try to salvage something before the lawyers got involved." She looked wary. "You're not still upset about everything?" I shook my head. "I just want answers." She agreed. The dinner took place in a private room at a local restaurant. Just me, Claire, and Melinda posing as the adoption group counselor. Claire showed up wearing a navy dress, hair pinned, smile soft. She looked calm, ready to charm her way out of anything. Melinda led the discussion gently, like a therapist. She asked about the decision to cancel the adoption. Claire gave a polished, empathetic answer about mental health and feeling unready. Then Melinda pulled out a small tablet and tapped the screen. "I'd like you to listen to something, Claire. It might help clarify a few things." Audio played. Claire's voice, recorded on a voicemail. "I just can't juggle both lives anymore. I need time to figure out which one I want." Claire froze. Melinda tapped again. Images appeared on the screen. Claire holding the toddler in Indianapolis. Claire at a prenatal appointment with Marcus by her side. Claire's email to the adoption agency from her fake account. Melinda set the tablet down. The room was silent. Then I spoke, my voice steady. "Did you ever really plan to tell either of us? Or were you just going to wait until one life became too inconvenient?" Claire didn't say anything. Her face had lost all color. "Marcus knows," I added. "He knows everything. About me, about you, about the baby." Still nothing. Melinda folded her hands. "You should know, Claire, that this evidence will be submitted to the court, not just for divorce proceedings, but custody, fraud, possibly bigamy." Claire finally spoke, her voice small. I didn't mean for this to happen." "But you let it happen," I said. "You canceled our adoption the night before we were going to meet our sonnet because you weren't ready, but because you already had a child." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Melinda stood. "I suggest you contact your attorney. You'll be served in the morning." Claire stared at me, eyes pleading. "Alex!" But I was already walking away. Behind me, her voice cracked into silence. The next morning, the papers were served. Claire didn't come home that night or the night after. She tried to call. I didn't answer. She left a message saying, "We need to talk about this like adults." I'd heard that line before. It was the same tone she used when she canceled our adoption, like it was a dinner reservation. By the end of the week, her lawyer reached out to mine. The message was predictable. Claire wanted to settle amicably, avoid scandal, and protect the child, hers, not ours. Melinda didn't even blink. "She's not getting a quiet exit," she said. "Not after what she did." And she didn't. We submitted the evidence package to the judge. Everything. The overlapping timelines, the second identity, the proof of pregnancy, the journal entries, Marcus's affidavit. It wasn't just adultery, it was calculated deception. And in Illinois, that mattered. The judge ordered a full investigation into Claire's finances and personal conduct. She lost the right to spousal support on the spot. Any joint assets were frozen, pending full disclosure. But the fallout didn't stop at the courthouse. Marcus had started his own legal process. He sued for full custody of their daughter, citing emotional instability, deception, and a second hidden marriage as grounds. Claire's carefully constructed second life collapsed in slow motion. Marcus moved out of the house they shared, told neighbors why, pulled their daughter out of daycare, and started from scratch. His family, once welcoming to Claire, cut her off entirely. Within a month, Claire was staying at a friend's condo, no job, no partner, no custody. Then came the final blow. The adoption agency, who had initially chalked up Claire's cancellation to nerves, contacted me. They had reviewed everything. The agency director herself called. "We were horrified," she said. "What she did, it was betrayal, not just of you, but of the child we were placing. You were ready. You still are. We want to reopen your file." I didn't know what to say. Then she added, "Milo is still waiting." That night, I walked into the nursery for the first time in weeks. I turned on the rocket nightlight. The soft blue glow filled the room like a breath held for too long. The walls were still gray, the mobile still spun, the dinosaur bedding still sat neatly on the mattress. And this time, it wasn't a memorial to a dream. It was a beginning. Claire sent one final email. Long, rambling, half apology, half plea. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she was lost, that Marcus was just supposed to be a temporary escape, that the pregnancy changed everything, that she hoped I could find peace. I didn't respond. She was looking for redemption, for closure, for the kind of ending she could live with. But the truth was, she didn't get to decide how this ended anymore. I did. And it wasn't with forgiveness. It was with silence. 6 months later, I stood in the same courthouse where Claire once whispered, "I'm not ready," and signed the final paperwork to adopt Milo. He held my hand the entire time. He was quieter than usual that day. His foster mom said he got nervous in new places, but when the judge asked if he was okay coming home with me, he nodded without hesitation. Then he squeezed my fingers. I thought I'd cry, but I didn't. Not because I wasn't overwhelmed, I was, but because something else had settled inside me. Peace. Real, grounded, unshakable peace. The kind that doesn't come from revenge or rage or dragging someone down. The kind that comes from choosing what you build next. Claire tried to take that from me. She left me standing in a nursery alone with blue overalls and a crib full of silence. But I didn't stay broken. I rebuilt everything. Brick by brick. Not out of spite, but for something better. These days, I wake up earlier. Milo likes pancakes shaped like animals, even if mine always end up looking like abstract blobs. He tells me they're perfect. On weekends, we go to the park. He runs like he's never known a single heavy thing in this world. And when he laughs, it doesn't just echo, it fills. Sometimes, I think about Claire, where she is. If she ever truly regrets the life she burned down on both sides. But those thoughts fade quickly, like old smoke from a fire that's long since gone cold. Because the truth is, I didn't need revenge. She did it to herself. And all I had to do was step out of the wreckage and keep walking. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal lies. It hurts. It shatters. It steals time and trust and years you thought were safe. But it also clears the path. And if you're brave enough to take one step forward, then another, and then one more, you don't just recover. You rise. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's proving yourself right quietly, completely, and in the life they never thought you could have without them. And that's how I learned something no court ruling could teach. Living well isn't just the best revenge, it's the only one that matters. What did you think of this story? If you were in my shoes, would you have confronted Claire earlier? Or waited like I did? Let me know in the comments. ADS, smash that like. ATDS, subscribe to Revenge with Max for a brand new story every day and share this with someone who believes in second chances for the right people.